Thank you to all for attending today. Today we're going to be discussing generative and predictive AI in the context of marketing analytics with Alteryx. My name is Barrett Zaito. I'm an AI strategist here at Alteryx. So I often joined with customers to help them identify opportunities with machine learning, as well as with generative AI with our capabilities. I'm joined by Rachel Hatcharian, who is a senior AI technologist, and she's going to be doing the demo of some of these capabilities after we get started. Rachel, you want to say a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, hi, nice to meet you. My name is Rachel Hatcharian. If you see Barrett, usually I'm not far behind her. We work together to help companies strategize around all things predictive and generative AI. My background is within FP&A and finance, and actually before joining Alteryx, I was an Alteryx user for 5 years, and that's where I was able to automate most of my job, and that's how I got into data science. So excited to see things come full circle and excited to share some cool marketing analytics with you guys today.
So a little bit about Alteryx for anybody that is not as familiar with Alteryx. To get started, here at Alteryx, we actually use our own product in all of our business functions, and many of us use it daily. We have a large partner ecosystem, so over 600 partners, and our customers are across many different industries. There are over 8,000 Alteryx customers leveraging Alteryx in finance, in accounting, and of course in marketing. So we're going to talk a little bit about marketing today. You guys are welcome to reach out to us about other areas of interest as well. Alteryx is an data and analytics platform. It is an end-to-end platform. We're going to show you how you're able to ideate, access your data, blend it, and get it ready today through the platform, enrich your data, start to generate insights, and automate. Our focus is going to be on predictive and generative AI, and of course with a marketing use case. Throughout the Alteryx platform, AI is infused to enable business analysts and data scientists and data engineers to leverage the powers of AI and to be more productive across various functions. What we find frequently today, though, is that there's a lot of confusion about generative AI and predictive AI. So we want to start with a little bit of a differentiation of the two. We'll talk about the capabilities that you're going to see for each, a couple of use cases, and then we'll dive into a demo. So generative AI has become a really big topic with the release of ChatGPT and a number of other large language models. So there's a lot of interest there, but that actually starts the confusion, and people need to understand how it differentiates from the types of predictive AI they've been used to thinking about in the past. For starters, generative AI is not about predicting a particular outcome on an individual observation. So instead of giving us a single number or a single variant, it allows you instead to have a lot of text, a lot of sets of data. So frequently a data scientist or a developer might use it to actually build an output that is code. Underneath the hood, of course, there are neural networks. And what we're going to focus on is the usage. What you're going to see today is how generative AI can be used in ideation and prototyping within an easy-to-use interface that helps you with these analytics processes. And at the end of the workflow, how it can aid you in summarization. To compare that with predictive AI, now we're going to use a conversion use case, so a marketing conversion use case. And this is geared to predict whether a prospect or a customer is likely to convert in a particular pattern. So this is going to be very focused on machine learning algorithms. This is the type of AI that we've often known and loved throughout the years. It's not going anywhere. It's still very, very important, and you're going to see how it plays into this overall pattern. So for predictive AI, there are a number of examples in marketing. Marketing has been a great user of machine learning and AI through the years. Our focus is going to be on lead conversion analytics here today, but we work with a lot of organizations that want to look at customer lifetime value. They want to look at optimizing their email spends or scoring leads early in the pipeline. So whether you're talking about early on in the targeting, or where we're talking about converting a customer, or how we retain and make sure that their life cycle with you is optimal, you're going to find a lot of uses for that predictive AI. So again, we're going to show an example with lead conversion analytics, but it will be in the context of overall augmented business intelligence. So I want to introduce this topic really quickly so that you are familiar with what you're going to see. Traditional business intelligence has often been flat. So instead, what we're going to show you is how to leverage business intelligence like capabilities, but augmented with AI. That's going to be augmented with AI in the form of natural language processing, but also infusing some of that predictive AI output. So instead of seeing a flat report that you have to dig into and really drill into or heavily design up front, instead, this is going to enable you to quickly get to what is happening and why it's happening within your data or your business process. It's going to make it much easier to dig in and find those, more accessibility for different users, but mostly it's going to be very curated insights. So this capabilities will very quickly help you identify what's happening in your KPIs and what's driving those KPIs, why they are moving either in a positive or a negative direction at any given level of your data and your business process. So before we hand it over to Rachel to actually demo some of these things, again, we talked about the power of generative AI enabling you to ideate and prototype. So she's going to start ideating and prototyping with a generative AI capability, and she's going to build a pipeline to leverage that, bring that data in. And she's going to build and evaluate a machine learning model. The output of that machine learning model, she's then going to bring in, she's going to augment that data pipeline. She's going to bring that into our augmented BI analysis so she can do root cause analysis on that, and then leverage generative AI for easy summarization. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and hand this over to Rachel so she can begin the live demo.
All right, let me go ahead and share my screen. All right, so as Barrett mentioned, I'm going to go ahead and start off with the ideation and prototyping. So before we even jump into let's build this, sometimes, especially if you're new to advanced analytics, sometimes it can get hard to kind of shape that use case, and then also to identify what are the data points that I might need in order to execute on that use case. So what's awesome in Auto Insights is we have this feature called Playbooks. And what this allows you to do is to help not only identify use cases and think through the potential ROI, benefits, and users for that, but also to create a synthetic data map that can then be used to go to your data sources and identify, these are the particular fields that I need to grab. So how this works is we come into here and we enter in our role at a company, a business problem, things like that. And based on what you give it, it's going to use generative AI to generate use cases and that synthetic data. So for example, on here, I just use an example of a marketing analyst wants to do lead conversion for their digital customers here at Alteryx. And when I click generate use case, that's going to go ahead and kick this process off. And I've already run it just for the sake of time. It does take a few seconds to run. But once that runs, then this is the view you get. You get a number of use cases that you can begin to look over and see if this is what you're truly looking for. And if something pops out to you, and you can see the little what the ROIs for each of these are, but if you click on any of these to see the reports, it's going to give you a deeper dive into that. So it's going to give you a little overview of what that specific use case. It's going to allow you to look at the data structure, pull up in just a moment. Like I mentioned, key to benefit, suitable audiences, all those great stuff. And I'm going to show Auto Insights a little bit more later for that augmented BI process that Barrett mentioned. But you do have the functionality here to just come in and say, hey, this data set structure, which I'm going to go ahead and pop up. This data structure looks good. This use case looks good. These are the kinds of things that I know I would need based on my business knowledge. And if that looks good, then we can then take this data structure, download that, pass it to our data engineer. Hey, we got Designer, we can go get the data ourselves and run off to the races and gather that data. We can also explore the visuals within Auto Insights here if we want to, but that's our starting point, is going through and ideating and prototyping to shape our use case and shape the data that we need. So at this point, from that visual that Barrett showed earlier, we're going to go ahead and flip to, now we need to gather our data, prep that data, and send it to machine learning to train our model. And what that ends up looking like is something like this. So it's very simple, just for demo purposes, a very simple flow to show these are some leads that we have. These are the ones that are showing, we can see the 1 are the ones that have converted, the 0s have not. So we have historical data around marketing leads of how long that they visited, how on the website, where it came from, and all of these different activity information. And from this, we want to predict which of these leads, for new leads coming in, are probable to convert. Which leads do we want to target? So we go through this very simple data prep and cleansing, and this data is sent to machine learning to begin building that model. So I'm going to go ahead and switch over to machine learning again. So let me pull this up here. So this is machine learning. So we've sent our data into here. We're able to start analyzing it. I've already built out the model, but I'll walk you through it. It's very simple. Our data has come in, it's ingested. We have this converted yes or no, and that is going to be our column that we're trying to predict. So what we're going to do is go through a wizard-driven process for machine learning, where we're going to go through the left side. We're going to say, hey, what is it that we're working on here? What are we trying to predict? We'll do some analysis here. We'll continue on to build out the model, and then we'll evaluate it. So from here, you can see already right out the gate, it's saying, hey, there's an issue with your data checks. And I'm keeping it in here just simply to show that, hey, we do, based on the data types and the machine learning methodologies, it performs a number of data checks under the hood for you to make sure that your data is good for machine learning. So we're running those checks on your behalf. One thing that I do want to emphasize on here is that if you are new to machine learning, this is a great place to start, because throughout this solution, there is enablement built into it. So for instance, if you come into here, you select converted, and it's automatically going to set classification. But if you want to understand, what is the difference between classification and regression? Throughout this, you're going to be able to see things like this, and also education mode, that without leaving this, you're going to be able to see what are, what are the differences, and upskill yourself along the way. So once we've brought our data in, we already cleaned it up some in the Designer. It ran through the data checks. I'm okay with what's showing now. Now we want to go ahead and build that model. So when I click next, that is going to kick off a series of models and stack rank them against each other and give me this leaderboard of models. So instead of coding out, manually each one of these, it's automatically going through, running a machine learning pipeline for each of these and comparing them against each other. So then on the right-hand side, you can see that there is the ability to update this if you wanted to look at, accuracy versus log loss and all of these different things. Again, if you come into here and you're new to data science, new to machine learning, and you go, I have no idea what log loss is, Rachel, I have no idea. That's okay, because up here at the top, we have what's called our education mode. And if I pop this open, this is going to show me, as I navigate throughout the solution, it's going to show me, based on what I have on the page, different considerations and different things to look through. So if I'm wanting to know, should I use log loss or should I use, accuracy, I can come into here, and in more layman's terms, it's going to explain to me the different considerations when using one versus another, and it's not going to throw a bunch of statistics at you. So from here, we've come through, we've got our data checks that have gone through, we have our model that we've selected. We're going to go ahead with XGBoost. And from here, this is where we start to get into the insights. And one thing that I like to bring up when we're talking about machine learning, it's not just about getting those final predictions. It's also about getting those insights along the way, or what we refer to as exploratory data analysis. So in here, when we're looking at this and what are the drivers that drive a lead to convert, we can start to see that when the individuals go in there to update that tag, that's an important driver of that, also followed by the website total time and the notable activity. So that's interesting to show like what are the main drivers of that. But if we want to start having really more data-driven decision making, and if we want to work more collaboratively with our business units, things like partial dependence help to explain what is going on with your model so that you can understand what's going on and test things under the hood. So what this is showing me is along the axis here, you can see that as this goes up, there's a higher likelihood that that lead is going to convert. And we can see by all the different categories here, the likelihood that they could potentially convert. We can also start to see things for like numeric values based on how much time that they're spending on the website, their likelihood to convert. So for things like where you're looking to see, at what point are we seeing diminishing returns on a specific process that we're doing, these kinds of plots are invaluable to make sure that you're not overspending in areas where you're really not getting that ROI. So this is great for things like conversion, but you can also use this for customer lifetime value, churn, those kinds of things to get more insights into your customers, your leads, what have you. So from here, we've come through, we've built out our model. We could also run some simulations if we wanted to see on a specific row of data. Right now, this lead is showing as false. They are not going to convert. If I wanted to play around with my model to see, what are the things that could potentially shift this lead from going, no, we're not going to convert, to converting, we can play around with some of the features in our data set and see how that affects their likelihood to churn. So I can come down here, I can change the tag, I can say, hey, what if they're on the website for longer? What if, the last thing that we did was we sent an email, things like that. I can plug and play this, click run, it'll give me that simulated prediction, and I can kind of play with this to see how that interacts with my model. The last thing I want to show is throughout this, there's more visuals that I didn't get into, but there is a lot of exploratory data analysis that can happen within here, and all of those visuals can be exported to a PowerPoint. There is integration with Designer, as I showed earlier. And also, if you are a Python coder, if you want to see what's happening under the hood, this is all open source. We like to have, as transparent as a box as possible, so you are able to actually download the Python code that's happening behind the scenes if you want to continue and tune beyond what we've already tuned for you. And then lastly, if you want to score data within here, you can. So at this point, we've built our model. We have this great model that we want to use for maybe some new leads that are coming in. So once this model is trained, we can actually go back to Designer. And within here, we have our new leads that are coming in. We're going to run this against this project that I just had. So against that marketing, or the marketing model that I have within machine learning, I have that selected. And what that does is for new data that's coming in that doesn't know whether or not they're going to convert, these are new leads that have come in, we're going to run a prediction against them, so that for each of these, we're going to have this overall column to predict whether or not they predicted, and then the associated probabilities. So with the probabilities, and this is something that Barrett and I were actually talking about yesterday, different people might have different thresholds of what they consider for these prediction probabilities for converted versus not converted. So a nice best practice to kind of eliminate that guesswork depending on where you're putting out these final predictions to and who's consuming them. For this one, if I'm having some users in there where I really don't want them getting too into the probabilities, what I can do is to create a quick flag that says if it's above 90%, it's red hot flat. It's a red hot lead. If it's above 75%, it's a hot lead. So I get these flags that are in here that are built off of my machine learning model and these true prediction probabilities to say, if this is hot, I don't want you to focus on the prediction probability. I just want you as marketing individuals to come in here and focus here. This is where I want you to focus. So with all of this, we now have our data that's been cleaned, we have that model that was trained, we have new data coming in, our predictions that we've made, and then we have these business rules that have been applied. all of this data is cleaned up, organized, and then sent to Auto Insights, which is where we're going next to kick off that augmented BI process. So let me go ahead and switch on over. So when this data comes into Auto Insights for the first time, instead of your traditional BI tools where you're setting, this feature goes on the x-axis, this goes on the y-axis, and you have to have all of those very pixel perfect reports. Instead of that, what Auto Insights does is it takes context. So for instance, you give it the context around what are the dates within your data, what are the segments, so any kind of text fields, and then what are the measures or KPI. So when we're looking through this augmented BI process, we're really focusing on giving that context around these three things so that when we get to the AI portions, the generative AI portions, the natural language portions, that it knows which direction to use for that natural language. So in here, we bring in like our date. We tell it, what is the scale that you want to look at it on? Do you typically look at it monthly, quarterly? When does that financial year start? Things like that. And then for your KPIs and whatnot, you're going to have on here, is this good when this increases? Yes or no? Do we want them on there for a long time? Do we not want them on there for a long time? So you go through here, and all of this context is then given to Auto Insights, where you can then go ahead and create a number of missions off of it to begin analyzing your data. So what that ends up looking like is within Auto Insights, I have this curated data set that has all of my machine learning predictions in there, and it has all of those flags that tell my my marketing individuals where I want them to focus. If I wanted to come in and work off of that data set, I can select from one of these templates that are here, or just create a blank mission to say, hey, I'm wanting to use this data set that I just created, and I want to look at my red hot leads, and I want to look at the hot leads. You can select that, and automatically it starts generating these missions, these insights. So you're going to have this mission summary, which is made up these pages here where you can start to manipulate these. So instead of going through and making those visuals, what you're doing is you're selecting these options along the top here. So if I wanted to look at the red hot leads, but I wanted to break it down by, the last notable activity, things like that, automatically, Auto Insights is generating that for me. So how this is really helpful is for, like Barrett was talking about before, for interrogating your data, digging into your data, drilling into it, but also for shaping analytical views as well. So if I have something specific that I'm shaping for my marketing team to use, I can go ahead and create a mission, add commentary, and focus around what I want them to look at. So to that end, I've already went ahead and shaped one a little bit more. So I've come into here, I've given it a quarterly leads review. So within here, coming into here, I can see looking at the total leads for Q3 versus Q2, I can start to see what are the key changes that occurred and start to see the seasonality of that and where things changed over time. And then when you start to get to the interrogation process, it's right here. It's what are the most likely causes for this increase of the time comparison we're selecting? So we're seeing that this organic search in the lead source had a big uptick, followed by India, maybe this other lead origin. And in any of these, if we want to continue to drill into these and to understand, where are these driving from, on all of these, we can see, an overview of what are the change amounts and whatnot, but we can also drill into these. And on this, it's just exactly what we saw before, but now we're looking at specifically leads by the lead source. And with this, it's going to start to show us stories like this is a large increase. It's 2.6 times greater than your others. And continue to click and interrogate your data. So as you go through this process, you can really get into the nitty-gritty and drilling in to find very specific details or very specific variants and whatnot. So I'm going to go back to my my mission here. So how I have this set up is I have an overview of my leads. I want to understand what are my leads for the quarter. And then I also have, if I have an individual coming in here who wants to look at leads for a specific marketing campaign that they're doing, they could look at here. This is for all of the red hot leads. We can see all of the ones that we have predicted using machine learning of being a high probability to convert. Now this marketing team can come into here and see where these are by the total size, by the different updated size, by the origins. If they wanted to look at specific specializations and maybe focus on, hey, I have a specific maybe webinar going on for marketing, things like that. I can then begin to drill into this, find this marketing, and really start to get those kinds of insights. The last section I'm going to show you here is you also have the ability to start to correlate things. So if I wanted to look at how much time they're spending on the website on average versus the red hot leads, I want to understand for my red hot leads, what are they doing on the website? I can come into here and see these two against each other and then start to see what are the relationships between here. And this is going to automatically pull this up for me to start to dig through and understand what the behavior is for my customers on the website. So very, very quick view. So in coming to more of the generative AI thing, so we've gone through, we've got our data, we've cleaned it up, we've made predictions, we've made prototypes, we've built out a lot, and we now have this very nice summarized view, and we could continue to make it even more specific for our users. But I want to take this mission that I have here and begin to share it more broadly with my team. So there's a few ways that you can do that. So I could, send this via email. I could subscribe individuals to it. I could do all of these kinds of things. But you can also use Magic Documents, which is over here. This is going to allow you to take these pages here, so these 4 pages, and it's going to summarize them for us. So at this point, we've controlled everything. We've controlled the data pipeline, the model that was built, the data that was getting ingested into here, and given it all this context. So I like to call it, it's generative AI, but it's generative AI that's very focused and with guardrails on. So what that ends up looking like is something like this. And I did a fun one at first. So you can do things like emails. And what it's going to do is it's going to take those pages and you can give it context. So if you're familiar with ChatGPT or just prompt engineering in general, when you come into here, you can start to give it prompts. So the audience, what your objective is, what the topic is, and then your tone of voice. So for this one, I put ridiculously sassy with lots of emojis. You can also do things like presentations, which is where I think most of our customers end up using it. So all of these visuals, all of this whole PowerPoint was put together off of Magic Documents, off of this mission that I've curated. And I can come into here, and if I don't like exactly how this is phrased or exactly how it's going with it, I can save and regenerate after playing with these prompts. But once it's to where I like it, once it's in a good shape, this does a good, I would say 80 to 90% of the heavy lifting for you. And then from there, you could start to download and tweak the deck yourself. And as you're going through that deck, a couple of things of note is if you go to present this to your stakeholders and they say, hey, what is this coming from, or where is this from? The nice thing is that you have this data lineage. It's going to have this link here to take you back to that mission where this was generated from. So if you're presenting this on the fly, you could bring up this mission and drill into exactly what you're showing on the page. Another nice thing that it has is it does generate the speaker notes as well. So if you want to have just a little talk track to go to, it will generate that for you as well. But all of these are generated from this mission summary that we've curated and we've gone into. There, I'm going to pause there. Is there anything that you want me to get back into or go over a bit more? Or anything you think I missed?
No, I think we've covered the full end-to-end cycle. At this point, if individual users have a question, they're welcome to place it in the chat. I also wanted to provide Chris's email information. So if people decide that they have questions after the fact and want to reach out for a personalized conversation, they're welcome to reach out to Chris after this is after the webinar is finished. Does anybody have a question or particular use case that they wanted to share within the chat? Okay, so we mentioned there are a number of use cases that in the marketing arena. Sorry, I started to close things out. Can this model read off of text unstructured data? There are certainly capabilities within the overall Alteryx platform to do so. We did not do that today. Rachel, you want to address that a little bit, and we can get a little bit more targeted if the goal was about this particular type of data as well. So in general.
So there's different things that you can do. It's going to depend on what kind of text and unstructured data that you're referring to. So there are features within machine learning that allow you to do, and I can go over to machine learning real quick, what's called feature engineering. And within here, so I don't have any text in this data set, but what this does is it scans your data, and instead of having to create, custom formulas for things like what is the polarity of this, what is the sentiment of this text field, what you can do is you can come into here and select that. So that would be an option here if you had natural language in here. So that is one way where if you're using that text as an additional predictor for your model. If you're wanting to do a straight up text analysis where you're wanting to know, what are the topics of this, what are, the specifics within that text and not necessarily using it as a predictor, that's another process that we do.
Yeah, and Rachel, he's provided some additional context.
Okay.
So the goal is to understand if within their CRM, there is text entered about the reason that a particular opportunity has been lost. What are the reasons? So I think you were hitting on topic analysis, and it looks like maybe that's part of the goal there. Do you want to hit on that a little bit?
Yeah, so we do have, it's called within design. Let me pull this up. So it is a part of our offering. We actually have, it's called text mining. So we do have, it's called, you would want to look at for that topic modeling. So what you would do for that is you would run your data for that text field of, these are the reasons why that is lost. And what that would do is it would group that data into specific topics. You would have to go in there and read through it to understand, because it's going to end up being business context and whatnot, to understand what are the topics that it's grouping it into. But it could potentially, if you went through there and said generated like 5 topics, it could have a number of reasons as to why that particular pipeline was lost. And then you could use that as a model going forward with new pipeline coming in. If they enter that in, it would automatically be able to say, hey, they lost it for this reason versus that reason. But that is topic modeling that you're looking for.
Does anybody else have some particular use cases or questions related to what they might want to do? If you'll recall, some of the other areas that we talked about, marketing heavily uses these types of capabilities might be to identify, the email open rates and optimize those open rates, or to use the NPS scores that you're already gathering and generalize that out to users that haven't yet provided an NPS score, so that you have a better understanding of where they sit and what they might be interested in. You might look at lead scoring to optimize and make sure that you're focused on the best leads. Or return modeling. A lot of organizations really want to look at that churn, at predicting churn, and really with the goal to drive retention. So all of those are areas that these capabilities become heavily used and very valuable. And on the text mining, of course, survey analytics as well. You see a lot of people looking at burst surveys and looking at surveys and behaviors or attitudes about different aspects of their organizations or products over time through these capabilities.
And some of those techniques too can be fun to put together. So for instance, on your pipeline loss, if you have a whole set of your data where that pipeline loss is just one, text field, along with all of maybe your, opportunity information or whatnot to go along with that pipeline. So if you combine those together, you could potentially have, you have your topics for the however many reasons as to why that could be lost, and all of your other pipeline information like the deal size or what have you, those could be run against the model to see, what are the potential topics that are driving that pipeline to go or not go, things like that. You can start to combine those text processes with machine learning as almost additional features for your model.
I see another question about the AI engine used here. So since there are a couple of different capabilities, do you want to hit on the generative AI engine that we use for the prototyping and summarization, as well as what we're leveraging for machine learning and that predictive AI? Rachel?
Yeah, so I'll start on the predictive AI since I'm right here. So for the predictive AI, it is open source using best-in-class Python libraries. It is all online that you are able to see. And then you can see the different models that are being used right here. For Playbooks and for the magic documents that you saw, that is using Azure Cognitive Services. Does that help you answer your question? You're welcome.
Thanks. Right. Any other questions before we close out? You're welcome to, of course, to reach out to us with the email address that we popped in the chat. And of course, with your account executives, if you've got an email from them inviting you to this session today, you're welcome to reach out to them, and they can help set up time if you have a particular question that you want to talk about offline. JT, do you want to close out if there are any other questions about what the participants should expect and follow up?
Yes, just as a quick follow-up, I just wanted to let everybody know that all of the people who attended today will be getting a sample of the recording. If you have any issues, feel free to reach out to me directly. Jonathan Teal at Alteryx.com, JTeal at Alteryx.com. You will be receiving that recording, and if you have any questions, please reach out directly to your sales rep or to your solutions engineer, or to Chris Singrani, whose email is in this in the chat. And if you have a specific use case you'd like to ideate around, and work with Barrett and Rachel, hey, we're happy to bring them to the table. So thanks so much, everybody, for joining today, and really appreciate all of your participation. Enjoy the rest of your day.